My name is Stephan Wolfert, and I'm currently the artistic director and founder of the Veterans Center for the Performing Arts. We primarily develop original works by military veterans, but then we bring in veterans and non-veterans together to work to develop that process. We bring professional theater artists who don't have to be veterans, and then we present that. And a big part of a big component is to present it free and open to the public, to get that open the dialogue and the discourse between veterans and civilians, and we use theater to begin that process. The other thing I'm part of is Keith Jeffries and he has a similar organization. We came together to create Shakespeare and Veterans. And with that, it's a similar process, but it's almost exclusively classic-based works in Shakespeare, and we actually bring veterans in, and non-veterans as well. Always, I think it's very important to have veterans and non-veterans to open up the dialogue, so we're not so insular and protected. We work our way through a Shakespeare play. We actually employ veterans through different parts of putting up a Shakespeare play. In some cases it's acting, in some cases it's stage management, usually all of the above, just to get it all done as well. And then we present that free and open to the public, and we tour in the summers. So those are the two groups that I'm actually in more, but those are the two that I run. I work with Native Voices as well. They develop original works by Native Americans in Native Earth in Canada, which is the same thing, but in Canada. They were actually the models for my veteran-based theater companies. And let's see what else. Yeah, Will and Company, it's a Shakespeare company. I worked on Broadway with Twyla Tharp and a bunch of stuff. And I got into it because actually I saw Richard III. I was in the Army, saw Richard III, and it truly moved me so much and messed me up that I left the Army and everything else I was doing and went to graduate school for theater, specifically Shakespeare. So that's what I've been doing. That's why I'm involved. I believe I felt firsthand the power of theater and the transformative power specifically, and so I spend my life doing that, trying to not only achieve it but try and get that with others. There's a play we have called Fit for Society where we took wrote it with Brian Monahan and with my wife, where we did collections of stories, many of my own, plus people we know that are veterans, and we interviewed. And it wasn't very journalistic. We'd been hearing them and telling them for so long. We put them together into this theatrical presentation that really only focuses on that adjustment of going from military to civilian, and how not a weep fest of this is how hard it is for me, but just discussing it the way vets actually do. So it's very Turdian language and all that, but it's not overly philosophical in that many of the vets haven't resolved why it's difficult. So there's a lot of that. There's more questions posed rather than answers, I guess is what I'm saying. And in one experience, there were two in particular. One was a vet and one was a civilian. And the vet, he saw it, and I was sitting next to him. I directed that piece and co-wrote it, like I said, with Brian. And the vet was sitting next to me, and he has become a dear friend. But he was just squirming. I didn't know him. I just met him that night. He was back from Iraq, not even 6 months. He was just squirming, and couldn't handle it, and left right after the piece. And he came back a week later into the theater when we were working on the set for another show, and he actually said, "I'm pissed at you." And he was really upset, genuinely upset. And we sat down and we talked about why, because it pulled out all this stuff that he had been trying to lock away. And then we got him in touch with the VA and some other folks that can help, because we're not a therapy program. I think theater's therapeutic, but it's not. We don't do therapy. And in conjunction with our piece, our work, our people involved, veteran and non-veteran, and the VA and himself, his own fortitude, together, it actually, I'll be honest, it messed him up more for a while, but it has brought him to a much better, wholesome place. There's a lot of work ahead, but to actually see that firsthand, the power of theater to actually transform somebody who'd never gone to theater before, who didn't like it, went because a friend was sort of making him go. He didn't want to see something about vets or war or any of that, and to see this actually stir him in such a way that he couldn't figure out why, but he kept coming back to it. And he came back to the play again, he came to some other work, and he came to see Shakespeare, and for whatever reason, it helped him communicate what was bothering him. It gave him the freedom to talk about what was going on with him but towards the piece he had seen. Does that make sense? Where it was his stuff, but he could talk about the play as though it was not him. and it helped him come out with more of his stuff. And so that was one big one. And I think the most powerful one, and going back to the most memorable as well, is after we'd done that same play, Fit for Society, for a group up in the Antelope Valley area in Southern California. This woman, after we do a talk back after every presentation. Let me know if I'm going on too long. We do a talk back after every presentation, and it's as important to the play as the play itself. So we do a 60-minute play, and then take an intermission, and then we do a guided talk back. We don't discuss policy. We don't discuss anyone outside the room. This president, that president. It's people that are in the room, the vets and non-vets that are in the room, and what was discussed about that difficulty and why it's difficult. And there was a woman who was crying, and the talkbacks usually are longer than the play themselves. So after about 2 hours, this woman wept almost all the way through the talkback and a good portion of the show. And after she had collected herself a bit, there was myself and a psychotherapist. We were both sort of noticing her and asked, is there anything she wanted to share? And she said that, I wish I'd seen this 3 years ago. And this is just a couple years ago, by the way. So this is 30 plus years after the Vietnam War. She said, I wish I'd seen this 3 years ago. My brother was a Vietnam veteran, and my mother and I could not figure out why he couldn't just let it go. And for all these years, for 30 years afterwards, he was all screwed up, and they just didn't understand, and he committed suicide 2 years ago. He killed himself. And she said, if I'd seen this play or something like this, I would have had a better understanding, and then I would have realized that he's not alone, and that he's not, there's many people going through this, men and women, who just can't adjust, and we don't know why. We don't have a solution. There's no formula to any of it, but for her, that's me saying that, but for her, she said, I just wish I'd seen it, and I feel like somehow it would have helped me understand and not added to his grief, and could have been maybe at least more part of it, and maybe he'd be alive. We don't know, but obviously, but that's probably the most powerful thing that I've had happen to me personally, and I guess would replace my most memorable experience in the theater.
Wow.
We have. There are so many blocks and so many stereotypes, or I think that people that have fixed in their head. For one, Keith and I both are having difficulty getting young veterans from these wars to come in, because they just want to get back. We know, because we went through it, not what they're going through. Believe me, I did not have, 18 months of sustained combat like they're going through. I was post-Vietnam and pre this mess, so all of mine and Keith's stuff was peacetime and small skirmishes, Panama, things like that. First Gulf War, 100 hours, stuff like. Not that it wasn't intense and valid, but not on what the scale they're seeing today. And trying to get them to come in to do anything related to it is difficult. They try to just disappear back into society, for one thing. And my biggest concern is not only that we're going to repeat, Mark Twain said, we don't repeat history, but it sure does rhyme. We're going to rhyme all the exact same problems that we continue to have. I mean, in the 80s, 17 years after, 7 to 17 years, we had the largest homeless population. We had a big boom in this country, and it was because of Vietnam veterans. And it wasn't the day after they got back, it was months and years, and it grew and it increased, and that's what we're going to have now. And for the first time, we have, for the first time on this scale, we have women in combat. In much larger numbers than we've had, and in much more intense roles than we've ever had in our nation's history, and that's going to be something we've not dealt with, and we've not dealt with regular old just veterans from the war yet, in my opinion, not adequately. We don't. There's not enough resources. The VA. There are many people trying very hard, working very hard. I work with the VA, in the West LA VA, and there are many people who care, but it's not enough. There's not enough time, not enough resources to help everybody and not help them adequately. I mean, the fact that there's a 90-day waiting list in some cases 6 months, it's unacceptable. And now, like I said, we've women, and we're doing a piece right now. We're working on a piece that it's called Double Whammy, and there's because women. 1 in 4 women have been raped in service, and that's the most conservative number. 1 in 4. So now, and by the way, that's usually done by their commander, not some, we like to make it, it's the evil Arab somewhere hiding in a closet. No, it's their commander, so they can't report it. Generally speaking, they said don't know recall exactly, but I know it's over 70%. I believe it's more than the 90 percentile, but I don't recall the numbers right offhand. But it's high. So 1 in 4 are raped. Plus, they're in combat, and because right now 3 out of 4 veterans have seen combat. It's an astronomical number. So now you're seeing this double, what they call the double whammy, with women that have been raped and have been in combat, and I know for a fact we don't have those resources. I mean, our laws prove it. You know, we call it sexual assault, not rape, and you know, we have all these debates and what it takes. I mean, the animal cruelty sentence in California is steeper than the penalty for rape. So that gives you an idea of what these women are up against coming up for the rest of their lives, I guess. One's coming back now. So, and we've been in this war. It's the longest war in our history, 9 years. Afghanistan, Iraq is right there, about to break the record as well, or get up there. So, there's a lot. It's a lot of work to be done, and we're not. To answer your question, and we're scratching the surface to begin with. We're such small organizations at this point, and to try and get, you know, we're constantly going out trying to bring them in, but you know, we're in LA. So they want to do film and TV if they want to be in this industry at all, generally. So getting them to do theater is very difficult. They're back, so they don't want to do therapy or anything therapeutic. They just want to be back, be normal, and they're young, and so they don't necessarily want to be a part of these 2 old codgers trying to do going, we know what you need, come to a play, it'll help, I promise, and they don't tend to believe us. But a few do, enough do to where it's working and they're spreading the word. I mean, both of our organizations have grown at a minimum of 20% per year, which isn't enough for me, but we're growing, we're getting there. So, but yeah, we need to get these women telling their stories, because if they'll tell it, then more will tell it, and you'd be amazed. When we interview these women, we hear the same thing, one after another, and so many think that they're the only ones. So that alone would be a huge breakthrough if we could get that. I know I'm rambling on, I apologize.